So I've seen a lot of mixed reviews about this lens all over YouTube, and it appears to be heavily based on what camera you are using it on, whether you have a good experience or a bad experience. And of course, being an L-mount lens, most people are using it on Lumix cameras. But I really like finding cheap lens options for my Sigma FP, which this is being shot on right now. And we're shooting this with the TT Artisan's 23mm f1.4. Now these little TT Artisan's manual focus lenses I think are phenomenal. They're so well built, it's metal construction, the aperture ring is slightly clickable, but it's not like a heavy click, but it's enough where you're not going to accidentally declick it. The focus ring is smooth on every single one that I own, and they're so compact. They're great little lenses, but they're well built. Now I like these when I'm shooting video with the Sigma FP because the whole point of my Sigma FP is having a small form factor. Now that's never going to replace or even come close to something like my beloved Canon 50mm 1.2 L glass. This is a lens that I absolutely love. I love my high-end glass, but I have a high affinity towards tiny, cheap little, well-built lenses. So I thought to myself, let's see how this Meike, or everybody seems to pronounce it differently. I'm going to call it Meike, although it's probably Meike. I'm going to see how this Meike, let's call it Meike, how this Meike performs on the Sigma FP, being an L mount. Because everyone across the board is having a completely different response, especially when it comes to autofocus. Now I knew what to expect. I wasn't expecting something like my L glass or even something like my TT Artisan's compact. But I did think that I would get at least some decent autofocusing out of this lens. So I went with the Meike, I forgot what I was going to call it, Meike? So I went with the Meike 35mm 2.0, and I gotta tell you, for a plastic lens, the focus ring is great. It has an AF to MF switch, and I do believe that some people said that at one point they were not including a lens hood with it, but mine came with a lens hood, and I did buy it new, but I bought it off of eBay, and the lens hood, obviously, it's fine. But now here's the thing. The rear cap opens clockwise and is very tight. But that's a good thing, right? It fits tightly. It's always better to fit a little tighter. Now, you do get a tiny little rubber gasket here, which that's probably just a little weather resistant, not waterproof or anything like that. You do have a USB-C port, and the glass seems decent. So the build quality for a plastic $200 lens, and I got mine for $184 shipped to me. So I would say that for a $184 lens, the build, see I always forget that it counterclockwise to lock. Counterclockwise. Clockwise to open. So I figured for a $185 lens, let's check it out. Let's throw it on the Sigma FP. Let's see what kind of image we get. Now I only use the Sigma FP for video. I don't really ever use it for photography, although I do shoot a lot of headshot work. This is not the camera I use. I prefer shooting my professional paid work with L glass on my Canon cameras. But I was not expecting this. So let me show you what happened. And please excuse the video, I had just woken up, the security cameras were going off, the mailman was out front, and he had a package for me, and I knew exactly what it was, so I ran down to get it, threw it on the camera, and here's what we found. Alright, so this is the first experience with the Meike 35mm f1.8 on the Sigma FP. You can see I'm smiling because there's a horrendous amount of focus breathing going on here. Anytime I move. Played with all the focus settings and tried multiple settings, face detect, eye detect, single point, multi-point, wide, all that. It's the same thing every time. Now again, this is on the Sigma FP, so it's not necessarily one of the Lumix cameras, but it's still an L mount, and this is really bad. Really bad. Totally unusable. Completely unusable. Switch over to manual focus. I'm using the Atomos Shinobi 2 with focus peaking. There we are. Looks like this lens is unusable in autofocus mode. Now that's really bad. Like, actually horrendous. Terrible and unusable. Now, because we have 4 different YouTube channels, many different backdrops, 10 different tripods with different cameras on it, most of which are Canon, many of which are Canon C200s. This is just kind of like my fun little home office area, camera, etc. type of that. So I kind of just wanted a 35mm option to throw on here if I wanted autofocus, but it looks like I can't even use this for that. So for the money, it could be a great lens, and I'm thinking maybe there's a firmware update that would change that, but probably not going to help drastically enough to take away that kind of focus breathing. That's not even focus breathing, that's like focus humping. And that's really bad. But that's pretty inappropriate, so let's skip that part. So now, overall build quality for a plastic $200 lens is sufficient. It's fine. I wouldn't expect anything more than this. I know that some people are finding this lens for $170. I know some people are finding it for $215, but let's say $200. But I was expecting the autofocus to be at least a little bit more tolerable, but that's bad. So, friends, in the comment section, let me know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I played with all of the different autofocus modes on the Sigma FP. I tried pretty much everything I possibly could, but to no avail, there was no change. It was literally the same every time. So maybe those of you using this for Lumix cameras, you're having better compatibility. But on the Sigma FP, this Meike 35mm autofocus is just unusable, unless I'm doing something wrong, which I very well could be. So if I am, please feel free, let me know in the comments section. Am I missing something? Alright friends, that's my quick review on the Meike 35mm autofocus 2.0 full frame lens. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next video.